There are things we hold for years, not because they were too big to say, but because they were too small to survive being spoken. I wrote something once. Late. Cold. No one else awake. I folded it twice, then let it disappear into the back of a closet. Not thrown away. Not forgotten. Just placed somewhere. Silence wouldn't press so hard. Time moved. So did people. One day, I noticed something slightly off. A shift so small it could have been dust. Or it could have been a question no one dared to ask. I never told them what I wrote, and they never told me they found it. But something between us softened, like the corner of a page long folded. If you've ever carried a sentence for too long, maybe this is the moment you let it breathe. It didn't happen all at once. Grief has a way of wearing people down slowly, like water on stone. After Harold passed, Melissa asked me just once, her voice low and tight. Did you wait too long to call 911? I didn't answer. I couldn't. She didn't ask again. What followed was not a fight, not even a disagreement, just fewer phone calls. Then silence. 1 week became a month. Then months became a rhythm of distance. Ellie still came over after school, but Melissa rarely stepped inside. She'd stand at the door, scan the room, and hand over a bag of snacks or a school note, always in a rush, always polite. I told myself she was busy, until small things started changing. One day, I came home from the pharmacy to find the freezer reorganized. New containers, labeled meals, all arranged neatly. Melissa had used her key, come in, and restocked without a word. I checked the fridge. Same thing. She was feeding us, but also saying something. Don't cook, don't touch. I'll take care of what you can't. The spare key vanished a week later. When Ellie's 7th birthday came, Melissa sent a group message to invite family. It would be at a children's party venue and not at their house. Not mine. She asked me to bring Harold's potato salad. Ellie remembers it, she wrote. That softened me just a little. I arrived early with the salad in a cold pack and a small book Ellie used to love. Melissa greeted me at the entrance with a quick nod, her clipboard in hand. She didn't introduce me to the other parents. She didn't ask me to stay close. Inside, the tables were decorated in pink and silver. Ellie ran up to hug me, which lit something warm in my chest. I helped her unwrap a dollhouse and kept her juice cup from tipping. Then I noticed something odd. There were name cards on the tables for family. I searched the tables. I didn't see my name. I stood for a while, holding the paper plate in my hands, then found a folding chair near the photo booth and sat quietly. I watched as Melissa handed cupcakes to others. She never looked my way. Later, I stepped into the hallway where the gift bags were stacked. Melissa stood there, chatting with 2 other mothers. She didn't see me at first. One of them asked, "Did your mom help with all this?" Melissa smiled in that polite, tight-lipped way. She brought a salad. That's her thing. Quiet contributions. No questions. No answers. The other woman laughed. Then Melissa added, softly, but not accidentally, "She's really good at being invisible when things go wrong." I didn't move. I didn't cry. I just stood there, letting her words find their place in my bones. When she turned and saw me, our eyes met for a second. She froze, then turned back to the cupcakes. I drove home with the windows down, even though the wind made my eyes water. I needed that cold. I needed to feel something sharp, something real. That night, I sat at the kitchen table, lit one low lamp, and took out the stationery I hadn't touched since Harold's passing. I uncapped the pen and began to write, not for forgiveness, not to plead, but to place the truth somewhere it might someday be found. I stopped expecting apologies, but sometimes I still waited. Most days moved in quiet loops. I'd make tea, sweep the porch, and wait for the yellow school bus. Ellie would come running, pink sneakers and stories pouring out. I'd smile, heat up snacks, ask questions I already knew the answers to. At 5:13 sharp, Melissa would text, "On my way." Always those 3 words. No hello, no punctuation. Once, I tried calling instead. Her voicemail picked up. I left a message about glue sticks. No reply came. But the next day, Ellie had a fresh pack in her backpack. That's how it was. Needs answered. Feelings untouched. In the kitchen, I started cleaning drawers that hadn't been opened in years. I found Harold's old baking scale, the one he never used but never wanted to throw out. Beside it, a note in his handwriting. "Don't forget apples. You always eat mine." I stood there, holding that scrap of paper, longer than I should have. At night, I sometimes imagined Melissa knocking on the door, asking to sit, saying, "Tell me again what happened that night." But I also remembered the one time she did ask, right after the funeral, "Did you wait too long?" She had whispered. And I said nothing. Maybe that silence was where everything else began. A week after the birthday party, I walked Ellie to the car. Melissa was already in the driver's seat, her hands on the wheel. Engine running. Ellie said, "We made a wishing star. Grandma wished hers would go to the moon." Melissa glanced at me just briefly. I couldn't read the look. She reached back, helped buckle the seatbelt, then reached forward and stopped. Her hand hovered over the dash like she was about to say something. Then it dropped. As they drove off, I saw it. The folded paper plate from the party, still sitting on the passenger seat. The one I'd used to serve Ellie her second slice of cake. The one with the frosting smudge on the corner. She had kept it, not because it mattered, but because something about that moment did. That night, I didn't sit in Harold's chair. I went to the hall closet and opened the cedar box. The letter was still there, unread, still sealed. I didn't open it. I didn't touch it. I just closed the door again and leaned against it. Then I remembered something. At the funeral, Melissa and I had shared a hymnal. We hadn't spoken, but when we stood to sing, her hand brushed mine on the page. She didn't move it away. It was the last time we touched, and maybe that's the part that stayed with me the most. Not what was said, but what wasn't pulled back. I didn't notice it at first. The closet door had always stuck a little, so when it didn't close all the way that morning, I just nudged it shut and moved on. But something about the cedar box caught my eye later that afternoon. It was off-center, a little forward, like it had been taken out and pushed back in. That box held only a few things. A dried rose from my wedding bouquet, a photo of Melissa when she still let me braid her hair, and the letter. The envelope was gone. It was the letter I wrote 2 winters ago. The one I folded and sealed, not with the intention to send it, but simply to let it exist somewhere outside of me. I never thought it would be touched. No one knew it was there. No one said a word. Melissa still dropped off Ellie in the mornings, asked about my pills in the fridge, but nothing more. Ellie still ran in, arms open, full of questions and tiny crumbs in her pockets. But something was different. A few days later, Ellie handed me a drawing. It was us, on the couch. She had drawn my glasses, the tea mug, even the slippers I always wore. But what stopped me was the line at the bottom, in bold purple crayon. "Grandma holds me when she's scared too." I had written that exact sentence in the letter. My throat closed. I stared at the drawing for a long time. Melissa must have read the letter, or someone did. Maybe Ellie found it and asked her about it. Maybe she read parts out loud. Maybe that's why the words had made their way into a child's picture. No one confessed, but the truth had moved. Later that week, Melissa stayed a little longer than usual after dropping off a bag of groceries. She asked about the water heater in the garden. She glanced around the living room like it was unfamiliar, or maybe like she was remembering it from some other time. Just before she left, she said something soft. There's a lot in this house that was never said out loud. What? I didn't answer. I just watched her hands, fidgeting with the strap of her purse, the way she used to do before piano recitals. That night, I went to the old computer in the back room and opened the document I thought I'd never read again. The letter. I had forgotten some of the sentences, the awkwardness of them, the way I kept trying to apologize without using the word sorry. One part hit me harder than I remembered. I froze while your father gasped for air. I thought it would pass. I told myself it was just another episode. But I was wrong, and I didn't move fast enough. I think about that pause every day. I had never spoken those words aloud. I had carried them like stones in my lungs. And this, I told you to be strong when you were 8. When you needed someone to cry with you. I didn't know how to show softness. I wore strength like armor and called it love. Reading it again, I didn't feel shame. Not by others, but by the version of myself who had finally decided to be honest. So I added one more line. Thank you for reading, even if I wasn't brave enough to give this to you. I printed it, folded it carefully, placed it in a fresh envelope. The next morning, I walked back to the closet and opened the cedar box. I left the lid tilted. This time, I wanted it to be seen. 3 days later, Ellie brought me her school folder. Tucked inside was a sheet of math homework, a library slip hand, the old envelope, worn edges, my handwriting, my letter. I found this under Mommy's pillow, she said. She said you should keep it. She didn't say it with curiosity. She said it with certainty, like someone who knew things adults forgot how to say. I took the envelope, held it in my lap, and looked out the window. The wind moved gently through the trees, not in a rush, just enough to shift the shadows. Melissa had read it, and instead of throwing it away, hiding it, or pretending it hadn't happened, she had kept it close. Close enough that her daughter found it, and somehow, it had made its way back to me. Maybe that's what healing looks like. Not a sudden fixing, not an apology tied in a neat bow, but a letter that made a quiet loop from my hands, through hers, through Ellie's sand back again. We hadn't spoken a word about it, but we didn't need to. This time, the truth didn't stay locked in a box. I never mentioned the letter. Not to Melissa. Not to Ellie. Some things, when spoken, shrink. But left in silence, they settle. They expand. They shift the weight of a home without making a sound. On Monday, I called the bank. I asked to access the safe deposit box I hadn't opened in nearly a decade. Inside were 2 things: the deed to this house and a gold locket Harold gave me the day Melissa was born. It had an M engraved so small, you had to tilt it to see. I took both. At home, I wrapped the deed in brown paper, not as a gift, but as a promise. I placed it in a new envelope and wrote, "For Ellie, not yet yours, but I hope one day you'll carry this home better than we did." Then I tucked it behind the flannel sheets in the linen closet. No announcement, no witness, just an act of quiet trust. The locket, I polished it gently with an old cloth. The chain was still intact. I placed it in a velvet pouch and tucked it into Ellie's backpack the next morning, between her math workbook and the crayons she always left uncapped. That afternoon, when Melissa came to pick her up, she paused at the door. Her eyes landed on the pouch in Ellie's hand. She didn't ask, but she didn't look away either. For a moment, her mouth parted slightly, as if a word had almost formed. Then her eyes met mine, and she gave a small nod. Not in approval, not forgiveness, but recognition. And somehow, that was enough. I reminded Ellie to zip her jacket, said the wind might turn later. Melissa helped with the zipper. Then she turned, hesitated, and touched Ellie's shoulder with a softness I hadn't seen in years. That night, I wrote one more letter. Not to Melissa, not to Ellie, to time. I don't need to be remembered with gratitude. I wrote, I just hope, one day, silence will remember me kindly. Now, I folded the page, placed it inside the cedar box, and left the lid gently cracked. If silence built the wall between us, maybe silence can take it down, one letter at a time. The first truly warm morning came a week later. The kind of morning where you don't just notice the sun, you feel it letting you exhale. I opened the kitchen window, let the breeze carry in the scent of new grass, soft earth, something beginning. I steeped mint tea, added honey. Harold used to say it tasted like quiet Sundays. Ellie showed up after school with her usual chatter and a pine cone in her hand. It looks like a dragon egg, she said again, holding it like treasure. I nodded. Then it must be magic. We sat on the back steps. She talked about the moon and a paper she was writing about seeds. I listened. At one point, she turned her back to me and tugged at her hair, frustrated with a knot. Without thinking, I reached for the comb. Want me to braid it? I asked. She shrugged. Okay. It had been years, but my hands remembered. 3 strands, steady and slow, like threading a thought into place. She didn't thank me, she just stayed still. After she left, I found the locket open on her nightstand. Inside, I placed a pressed leaf from the backyard, the same tree where she found her pine cone. Next to it, I noticed a small folded note in Melissa's handwriting. Tell Grandma thanks for the leaf. She hadn't signed it. She hadn't said it out loud, but she had written it. That night, I noticed the cedar box in the hallway closet cracked open again. Inside, beside the letters, someone had gently placed the pine cone. Ellie must have done it, quietly, as if returning something not just to me, but to where it belonged. No words, just a gesture. Somehow, it felt like a reply. I sat by the window as the sun dropped behind the neighbor's roof. The laundry on the line still swayed. Inside, I heard the creak of the hallway floor again. Not Melissa, not Ellie, just the house remembering. I still don't know what Melissa felt. Maybe I never will. But tonight, I am holding something small and true. We are walking again, not hand in hand, but side by side. And sometimes, that's how healing begins. Some letters are written to be kept, not sent, not seen. Some silences stretch across years without breaking, until one day, they don't. No one ever said they read what I wrote, and I never asked. But the way Melissa stirred soup without rushing, the way Ellie traced her thumb along my knuckles, the way the house felt lighter, all of it told me something had shifted. We are not back where we began. We are not healed in full. But something unopened was finally understood. If there's something you've never said, you're not strange. You're not late. You're just holding it gently. And if one day you let it unfold, may it still be soft in your hands. Have you ever kept something unsaid, just because saying it would make it disappear?